Picture this. It's 1972, and the most famous martial artist in the world is about to make the biggest mistake of his life. Bruce Lee, lightning fast, razor sharp, untouchable, stands in a Hong Kong dojo, surrounded by cameras and admirers. Across from him stands a quiet man with kind eyes and a soft-spoken demeanor, Chuck Norris. Bruce doesn't see a threat. He sees a prop, a stuntman, someone to elevate his own legend. So he does what comes naturally. He mocks him in front of everyone. The room goes silent. Chuck doesn't react, doesn't defend himself, just stands there, calm as a monastery pond. Bruce mistakes that silence for weakness. He pushes harder. The humiliation deepens. But what Bruce doesn't know, what nobody in that room knows, is that Chuck Norris isn't quiet because he's weak. He's quiet because he's already proven everything he needed to prove. And in just a few minutes, Bruce Lee is about to learn the hardest lesson of his life. Real power doesn't announce itself. Bruce Lee was a supernova in human form. By 1972, he had conquered Hong Kong cinema, broken into Hollywood, and become a global icon. His speed was mythical. His philosophy was quoted like scripture. Everywhere he went, people parted like the Red Sea. He was the dragon, and he knew it. Chuck Norris was different. A six-time undefeated karate champion, yes, but humble to a fault. He taught students in a strip mall dojo in California. He didn't chase fame, didn't talk about his accomplishments unless asked. When Hollywood called, he showed up on time, did his job, and went home. No ego, no drama, just quiet excellence. The two had met on the set of The Way of the Dragon. Bruce was directing and starring. Chuck was hired to play the villain in the Coliseum fight scene, a sequence that would become legendary. During rehearsals, Bruce was all business, focused, intense. But there was something else simmering beneath the surface, a need to prove he was the best, not just on screen, everywhere, in every room, in front of every person. Chuck didn't feed that need. He nodded politely, listened carefully, and moved with the calm precision of someone who had nothing to prove. And somehow, that bothered Bruce more than any rival ever had. It started subtly. During a break in filming, Bruce began making jokes. Little digs. "Chuck moves like a truck," he said to the crew, grinning. "Powerful, sure, but slow. Predictable." Everyone laughed. Chuck smiled along, sipping water, saying nothing. But Bruce didn't stop. Over the next few days, the jokes became sharper, more public. "In a real fight," Bruce told a journalist within Chuck's earshot, "technique without speed is just dancing. I could hit Chuck 3 times before he even raises his guard." The journalist scribbled it down. Chuck tied his belt, stretched his shoulders, and walked back to the set. Then came the day that changed everything. A private training session had been arranged, just Bruce, Chuck, a few crew members, and a cameraman documenting behind-the-scenes footage. It was supposed to be friendly sparring, a demonstration of skill between two professionals. Bruce entered the room like a king entering his throne room. Chuck bowed respectfully. Bruce nodded, not quite a bow, more of an acknowledgement. "Let's see what you've got," Bruce said, bouncing on his toes, hands loose and ready. They began slowly, controlled movements, technique exchanges. But then Bruce started speeding up. His strikes came faster, sharper, right at Chuck's face, stopping just inches away. "Too slow," Bruce said. Again, another strike. "See? You're thinking too much." Chuck blocked calmly, reset his stance, didn't retaliate. Bruce turned to the crew. "This is the difference between traditional karate and Jeet Kune Do. He's stuck in forms. I'm free." The crew laughed nervously. Chuck's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Bruce pressed harder. He wasn't sparring anymore. He was performing. Every move was designed to humiliate. He circled Chuck like a predator, slapping at his guard, laughing when Chuck didn't respond. "Come on, Chuck. Show me that championship spirit. Or did you leave it in the trophy case?" The room grew tense. Even the crew stopped laughing. This wasn't training. This was cruelty. Chuck's eyes, usually warm and open, became unreadable. He stepped back, lowered his hands. "Bruce, maybe we should—" "What? You tired already?" Bruce interrupted, grinning. I thought you were supposed to be tough. Something shifted in the air. It was subtle, a change in Chuck's breathing, the way his weight settled into his back leg. For just a moment, the quiet man everyone had underestimated allowed a shadow of something deeper to surface. And then, just as quickly, he pulled it back. I don't want to hurt you, Bruce, Chuck said quietly. Bruce laughed, loud and sharp. Hurt me? You. He turned to the crew, arms wide. Did you hear that? He's worried about hurting me. The laughter was forced now, uncomfortable. But Bruce was too far gone to notice. One more round, Bruce said, stepping in close. Show me your best shot. Chuck looked at him for a long moment, and then he nodded. Okay. Chuck had been here before, not in this room, but in this moment. Years ago, in dusty competition halls and back alley dojos, he'd faced men who needed to prove something. Men who fought with anger, with ego, with desperation to be seen as the best. He'd beaten them all, not because he was the fastest or the flashiest, but because he understood something they didn't. Real power isn't loud. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't beg for validation. Chuck had grown up poor, bullied, insecure. Martial arts had saved him, not by making him invincible, but by teaching him control, discipline, respect. He'd won 6 world championships not by destroying opponents, but by outlasting them, outthinking them, by staying calm when they panicked. Bruce Lee was brilliant, a genius of movement and philosophy. But right now in this moment, he was fighting himself, not Chuck. He was fighting the fear that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as untouchable as the world believed. Chuck had no such fear. He'd already lost before, failed before, and learned that survival wasn't about never falling. It was about always getting back up. Okay, Chuck said again, softer this time. Your move. Bruce came in fast, a blur of fists, elbows, a spinning kick aimed at Chuck's ribs. The crew gasped, but Chuck wasn't there anymore. He'd shifted, just slightly, just enough, and suddenly Bruce was overextended, off balance. Chuck's counter was surgical, no wasted movement, a single palm strike to Bruce's chest, controlled, precise, but with the weight of a mountain behind it. Bruce flew backward, crashed into a stack of padded mats and slid to the floor. Silence. Bruce sat up, gasping, eyes wide with shock. Chuck stood where he'd been, hands at his sides, breathing steady. I told you, Chuck said quietly. I didn't want to hurt you. For the first time in years, Bruce Lee had no response. The room held its breath. Chuck walked over and extended his hand. Bruce stared at it, pride and humiliation warring on his face. And then slowly, he took it. Chuck pulled him to his feet. You're incredible, Bruce, Chuck said. But you don't need to prove that to me. Or to them. He nodded toward the crew. You already know what you are. Bruce's eyes glistened. He opened his mouth, closed it. Finally, he nodded. Thank you, he whispered. The footage from that day was never released. The crew was asked, politely but firmly, to forget what they'd seen. Bruce and Chuck finished filming The Way of the Dragon. Their Coliseum fight became iconic, a respectful, breathtaking display of two masters at their peak. But something had changed in Bruce. He became quieter, more thoughtful. In interviews, he spoke less about dominance and more about balance, about respecting every opponent, every teacher, every style. Those close to him noticed the shift. Some say it was the beginning of his deepest philosophical evolution. Chuck never spoke publicly about the incident. When asked years later about working with Bruce, he said only, he was one of the greatest martial artists who ever lived, and an even better man than people realize. Here's the truth they don't put in the highlight reels. Strength that needs to be announced isn't strength. It's insecurity in a costume. Real power walks quietly. It doesn't need to prove itself because it's already been tested in the fires nobody sees. The gym at 5 a.m., the losses that broke you, the moments you chose discipline over ego. Bruce Lee was a legend, but even legends have lessons to learn. And sometimes those lessons come from the quietest person in the room, the one everyone underestimated, the one who had nothing to prove because they'd already proven everything that mattered. So remember this, The loudest voice in the room is rarely the strongest. The person who stays calm while others unravel, who shows kindness when cruelty would be easier, who can destroy you but chooses not to, that's the person you never, ever want to test. Because real power doesn't roar. It whispers, and the wise listen.